All right, we're back. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here.
Right?
I am. I've had a tough week.
Yeah, I know.
I walked in here today and I thought, it seems like forever since we've been here. We were just here last Saturday, and I've been through so much in the meantime.
Yeah.
And had a hell week, kind of. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I'm thankful for you because, man, throughout the week we would talk about stuff, and your humor and taking care of things and keeping me kind of like grounded was so essential this week.
Yeah.
So I was especially thankful for you this week. I was like, man, Aaron is keeping me sane. So it was nice.
I appreciate you saying that. You're welcome. Humor is just kind of the way I navigate the world. That's how I bump around the world.
Yeah.
It was funny. I was thinking because we were talking about this, and when my dad died of cancer, and I remember, he was in the hospital and he thought he had a kidney stone. It turns out the cancer was so into his bones, in his spine, that he was feeling his spine crack, the bone crack, but he thought it was a kidney stone. Anyways, so he's in the hospital bed. I'm the last one to get there, right? Everybody's already there. And I come in and the doctor comes in and they've just told my dad that he has cancer.
Okay.
Right? So the doctor comes in and tells him he has cancer.
Right.
Everybody starts crying. We work through the cry. Then the doctor goes, so I need to tell you what's going on. And we didn't cry very long anyway. So my dad goes, all right, I want you to, my mom was a nurse for 35, 40 years.
Okay.
So he tells the doctor, he said, I want you to tell my wife, she's a nurse, and then she'll translate it for me.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And then I go, and she goes, he'll translate it in English for me. And I go, and I'll translate it for the rest of you in interpretive dance. Everyone's laughing. The doctor's looking at me like, you're an idiot.
That is hilarious, man.
And it was so funny.
Was everybody else laughing, or was?
My whole family started laughing
because they know you and everybody, so that's good.
They definitely,
Well,
and
it doesn't matter
laughing.
if the doctor doesn't get the dynamic.
No,
because it was good to everybody in the room in that critical moment.
Yeah.
To be able to transition to a smile,
right?
And laugh about something
just for a minute. Because we
well,
got a lot of crying coming up.
Right. Right.
So.
You did that for me a lot this week. So, like I said, I was very thankful for you this week.
Cool.
So.
Good deal. Well, on the Conversation Coalition chat text, right?
Yeah.
We were looking for discussions or topics for discussion at our Conversation Coalition events, right? And you kind of shotgunned out like a dozen questions, some for Christians, some for atheists. And so we thought today
for anybody that doesn't know, just tell them. Tell them what we do.
So Conversation Coalition is a group of 4 atheists and I guess 3 now Christians, right? Yeah.
It varies. People come and go.
Yeah. And basically we just make an effort to get together to talk to each other about important topics. And it's really good. It's really interesting. And it actually just makes the opposing worldview a person, right? And not just an ideology for you to attack.
Right. I mean, that's the beauty of it, is that we have the conversations that people don't typically have. Everybody typically stays in their echo chamber. Whatever their worldview is, they hang around people with similar worldviews. And nobody really makes the chance often to, say, reach across the aisle and say, look, I'm going to intentionally find somebody that has different opinions on things than I do.
Yeah. And
we're going to sit and have a conversation. And it's not over Zoom, or it's not, no, we're going to sit and have a coffee. We're going to sit and have, and it's face to face. And so you don't get to be internet troll because, you cross the line too far, you get punched in the face.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, there's an expected, required amount of dignity that you give the other person, because you actually have to face them. Like, I can't just punk you and hang up. Right. I have to deal with you. So it makes you be more conscious of the other person.
Yeah. And the other thing is, we want to see those people again next week and next month, and we want to continue, so. Because
our worldview doesn't make us enemies.
No. And I've found the more that I get to know people's worldview that is different than mine, it just adds so much richness and texture to my interactions with people and my relationships and all that. So if I can have 4, 5, 10 friends that have their own opinions on things that are different than mine. It adds to my perspective. It lets me know that not everybody thinks the way that I do. And so it's a great thing that I feel like that we do. So
it's the watch a atheist troll or watch a something stupid like Christianity debunked in 2 minutes. Those kind of videos are just ridiculous, you know, and they don't add anything. They don't make the world a better place. They don't. They create this character of the other side that is not even real, right? And it makes you.
It reduces people to just that.
Yeah, it's like you don't like the video, and then it becomes you don't like the people because you just mash it all together into one thing.
Yep.
So Anyway,
so in the course of having those conversations, we've been through a lot of things. But it was put out to the group a week or so ago. Hey, what are some things that we want to cover for 2024? And so I just threw up a list of a dozen. And so throughout the year, I'm sure we'll go through some of those in that setting. And then you and I have the opportunity to get together every week. So I said, hey, let's me and you run through some of these.
Right. And so we're going to take the list of questions, because at the Conversation Coalition, we would take one question and deal with it for an hour. But in this setting, we're going to take 12 questions and deal with them in an hour. So it'll just be kind of quick takes. We won't exhaust each topic. Yeah. And maybe it'll lead to future conversations.
Oh, I'm sure we're going to end up digging deeper into some of these for sure.
Right.
So
okay. So some are aimed at an atheist, some are aimed at a Christian. I don't know that it's 6 and 6.
Yeah.
Some will both answer, but I'll ask the questions aimed at an atheist towards you, and you're going to ask the ones aimed at a Christian towards me.
Okay.
Cool. I'm not going to respond to the atheist ones, or should I? What do you think?
No, I'd like to have your opinion.
Okay. So we're both going to respond.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the whole.
Okay.
I want to know what you think about them.
Okay.
And how we go back and forth.
Okay.
So
cool. All right. Well, the first question is an easy one. Does atheism come with baggage?
So you and I have talked about this in the past. I know that you think that it should, and the easy atheist answer is atheism is just a lack of belief in gods. And while that's true, I have tried to dig in a little bit and say, because I've heard what you've said, and I'm like, okay, if I hold to that, and I said, look, it's a lack of belief in gods. What else does that mean? You know, so Christians have a creation story, and so you can say, look, everything is here because God did it. Atheists don't have that necessarily, or we can't say God did it.
Right.
Well, then that does put us in a position of, okay, well, then what did do it? Was it just the universe? Was it just natural processes? And so I wouldn't necessarily call it baggage.
Yeah.
But I have tried to not take the easy way out and say, oh no, atheism is just a lack of belief in God. And that for a while I was like that. I said, look, it doesn't tell you anything else about me. It doesn't tell you my politics. It doesn't tell you whether I believe in evolution. It doesn't tell you my stance on abortion. It doesn't tell you anything else about me. It's just that one thing. But in the process of conversation, I'm like, okay, but it does ask of me to explain the other things and give opinions on things with that. So I'm trying these days to accept a little bit of that baggage and move into it and say, fine, fine. I have no belief in a God. Okay, great. Do you have an explanation for the universe? Well, I don't think anybody can say this is how the universe began. So at some point I reach a point of I don't know, but I do try to accept some of the baggage and say, okay, I'll attempt to explain or at least articulate to what depth I do understand some things, and I'll look for answers to go further and gain a deeper knowledge of things. So I don't reject the baggage, and instead I'm trying to accept the baggage and move into it and say, okay, fine, I'll get into some of these.
Yeah. Because I think everything has, I guess, baggage. Baggage, we're kind of using it in a negative connotation, but I heard this definition of a worldview, because that's the one thing when atheists always say atheism is not a worldview. And and I would disagree with that, but I heard a definition of a worldview that I think made sense. And the person said, a worldview is your network of presuppositions that you use to engage the world. That's your worldview, right?
Yeah.
And atheism is a presupposition, right? You're assuming something that you don't know for sure, right? It's a presupposition. You start with, there is no God. Now, I would argue it's the most fundamental of your presuppositions, I think.
Right.
You might not think that, but it is part of your worldview. The reason I say atheism is a worldview is because I think it's the most fundamental one. And therefore, the question is, like you said, it's not just, you can't just reject the baggage. The question is, now what, right? Atheism, there is no God. Now what? What does that mean? What follows that?
Yeah.
You know, and you've got to ask that question. And I just think it's intellectually dishonest when people don't.
Yeah.
You know, you got to accept what it is.
Well, that kind of goes into the next.
Should it? What's the next thing? Should it have baggage?
Should it? And, you know, when you and I first sat down and started having conversations, I really was of the opinion that it shouldn't. You know, I should just be able to say, I have no belief in a God, and just leave it at that. But if you're going to have a deeper understanding of that and of people's worldviews, and you are going to legitimately question, where did we come from? How did all this get started? Where do we go moving forward, and based on what? You know, what rules do you use to kind of, you know, govern your life? Where do you get your morality from? All those things. I think it should. And so moving forward, even though I did take that stance at first, I think moving forward it's better to just say, yeah, it should. It should influence, you know, how you feel about things and your opinions and where you stand in the world. And
And think about this too. You know, you said you thought at first you would have said it shouldn't have, and you should just be able to say there's no God and that's the end.
Yeah.
And I think a good exercise to do, and I do this all the time, is if I say this, what if the other person said the exact same thing back to me just in reverse? What if I said to you, there is a God? That doesn't have any baggage. I don't have to address that. Right? You'd be like, your first question is, bro, where's your evidence? Right? And so my first question, you say I don't believe there's a God. My first thing is to press that, right?
Sure.
And you would do it to me. You wouldn't just accept like, no, God exists and that's it.
Right?
You'd be like, no.
Right.
So you know, if you expect that from someone, you should also give it.
Yeah.
So I agree with you that I think all worldviews have baggage and that they all should. And one thing leads to another. I think it's, you know,
it's almost like, you know, look, one guy thinks that there is someone watching all the time. Well, so then, like you said, then what? You know, well, if another guy thinks, look, there is no one watching.
Right.
Okay, fine. Then what?
Yeah.
You know, so I'm fine with saying, yeah, it should have. It should have some. I'm willing to accept it, and then dig in a little bit to start making sense of the world around us.
And the fun part is, I think, is to ask yourself, what now? And then actually try to figure it out in an honest way. In other words, what were we? If you say, okay, there is no God, and so that leads me to believe in evolution, right?
Okay.
Then the question is, okay, now I believe in evolution. Now what? What comes with that? And let's say, I say, well, with that, given if you believe we evolved, you know, from pond scum, that means you can't account for ethics or morality, right? I say something like that.
Feels a little disrespectful when you call it pond scum.
Stardust. I'm sorry. You're Stardust. You're a shining Stardust.
So much better.
Yeah. Right. And then go search that question. Don't go to Google and type in creationism debunked. Go look for people who are actually honestly criticizing your worldview and hear what they say. Right?
Yeah.
That is, I think, how you grow.
Yeah.
Right? If you just go, you can find someone to tell you what you already think.
Sure.
Go find someone who is actively, honestly critiquing your worldview. I just found this philosopher named Graham Oppy.
Okay.
And he's a very smart, really charitable, like in the way he talks about Christianity. He's an atheist, but the way he talks about it, he's very generous, right?
Okay.
And he's easy to listen to. Like we've talked to Aaron Ra, he's hard to listen to.
Can be.
Yeah. is. No, to me, he's really hard to listen to.
Yeah.
But I can hear the same critique from Graham Oppie, and it makes sense just because he's kind about
Right.
Christianity.
Right. Delivery's a little softer and not as legalistic. And,
yeah. So anyway, that's kind of sidetrack. What I'm saying is I think it's good to challenge your now whats that are hard. Don't just put them away. That's where, we've talked about me deconstructing science, just to use your guys' terminology. But when I learned the difference between like data and interpretation, because they're often just smashed together, right? Neil deGrasse Tyson tells you something. The universe is this way. That's his interpretation of data. The data doesn't say that. When people say the evidence speaks for itself, evidence doesn't talk, dude. You talk, right?
Yeah.
And when
we'll get into more.
Yeah.
We'll get into more of that at
right.
some point.
But my point is just that then I was like, okay, I need to hear people like attack that and tell me why that's not true.
Yeah.
And, right?
I do firmly agree with that, and that comes up not just in conversations about the universe or science or anything. Even just in politics. I know people that sit around and watch Fox News all the time, and that's the only source of their information, and it skews things in how they perceive the world.
Yeah.
And the same is true on the other side. But if you can go from Fox to CNN to other places and just kind of get a sense of the whole conversation that is taking place and all the different views on it, then you can see where you stand.
Yep. When I was sorry, did I interrupt? No. When I went to learn about Hinduism, because Islam and Hinduism are what's commonly brought up. Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, right? Those are the religions that you're often asked to compare your beliefs to. Okay. So I was like, I need to learn more about them. But when I started to listen to Hinduism, I just Googled like, I wanted to hear a Christian tell me about Hinduism.
Hinduism debunked.
Yeah, that's what I did. It was basically, that's what I did. And
nice.
The guy got up there and the first thing he said was, there's a principle in Hinduism that everything's an illusion, so you can't know anything anyways. And I was like, hold on, time out. Hinduism is old, and you did not just boil down like 3,000 years of theology into one sentence. I was like, I'm listening to the wrong person.
Okay.
Then I listened to like 10 hours of some guru, I couldn't even pronounce his name, tell me about Hinduism. And that was way more productive to hear someone who actually believed in Hinduism tell me about Hinduism and explain, because there is a concept of Maya where everything is an illusion. It's not what that guy said. It's a very complicated thing, right? And it's kind of the basis of...
So he kind of straw manned it.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
And then for Islam, I am listening to someone give me like a systematic theology of Islam who's a Christian, but that's just so I can kind of organize it in my head. Then I go and I just listen to Muslim preachers, right? The Yasser Qadhi's a guy I like, and you just like listen to them tell you what they think.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we were going to talk about justice today, so I was looking into what is justice in Islam. It's interesting. Anyways.
Okay.
So yeah, it does have baggage. It should have baggage, and we should always be challenging what we believe and what we don't believe.
Yeah, right? and I'm okay with that. I wasn't at first, and I wanted to take the easier route, but I'm okay moving into that. Yeah,
and we know Christianity has baggage.
Right.
I noticed that question wasn't on here.
Well, we all know that one. I mean,
okay. Is atheism the easy way out? Is your next question?
Yeah.
And what do you tell me a little bit more, because you typed these up, so tell me a little bit more what you mean by that.
Well, critics of atheism, or a lot of believers will say, well, you just don't believe in God because you want to do whatever you want to do. You don't want to adhere to a certain way of life. You just want freedom, and they make it seem like atheism is the easy way out.
Oh, because are you saying that it like relieves you of any responsibility for your actions?
That's what they think.
Like cosmic responsibility.
Right.
You have immediate, but not cosmic.
Yeah, you just don't want to answer to anybody. You just don't want to that kind of thing.
And so what do you think about that?
I think that perspective is just usually comes from somebody that's fairly narrow-minded, fairly set in their ways, and is not interested in having the conversation and actually getting to know somebody that is not a believer and ask them about their experience. Because for me, atheism has in no way been an easy way out.
Right.
A lot of times when somebody's leaving their religion, that involves very tough conversations with family, friends, people that they love. Suppose you've been in a church where you had some nice sense of community, and every week you go in there and you shake hands and you ask each other, how you doing? When you need help with things, you can call on your church family, and so you really have this network around you, and it really gives you a sense of community, and when you decide, I don't believe these things anymore, and you break away from that, and you're honest with people that you love, and you say, hey, I just want to tell you about myself and where I'm at these days. There's been families divided over that. Children have been disowned. In some communities, they're shunned. But what do you do? Do you just fake it to get along? Do you say, no, I believe just like everybody else does, so that you're still a part of the community, and you're still accepted by your friends and family and these groups that you've spent a lifetime in. One of the big things about atheism is it can be somewhat lonely, because we don't have any atheist group that gathers every week, reaffirms each other and that kind of stuff. You've got,
they don't call each other Stardust.
No. So now you can have other stuff. I mean, you can have bowling leagues, and you can have whatever. So there's other ways to be parts of different groups, and so that's cool, but not expressly centered around a common belief too. Like when you go to church, everyone in that church, we don't all agree on all the peripherals, but we all believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God that died on the cross and rose on the third day and saved me, right, and saved you, and so we're all unified in that, right? So like for us, we're down here in Tennessee. We're in the Bible Belt. You know how much easier it would be for me to be a believer and just say, yeah, man, I believe just like everybody else, in the community, and all the support and all the just the feeling of being a part of something. And so at least down here in the South, it's not at all the easy way out. In my work life, I'm in people's homes a lot. And so I'm constantly in believers' homes. And so regularly they drop little things. Hope God gives us some rain this afternoon because things sure are dry out there. Or, we'll pray that everything goes okay. And you just don't say anything. You just don't, okay. So there's a feeling of you're not being true to yourself, or you're not really communicating honestly. So you're kind of going along to get along. Whereas occasionally I do, depends on the relationship, but occasionally I do say, hey, so I don't believe the same, and I've had some people say, "What? You're an atheist?" But I don't understand. I mean, you're such a good person, and I'm right. I can be good because I decide to be good. I don't need to have a belief that someone's watching me, or that there's a judgment to come, or any of those. And they don't understand it, so now you're explaining, all these things, and those interactions haven't been bad, but atheism for me has certainly not been the easy way out. It's been a tough road with some challenging conversations, some tears at times, and some awkward situations. And honestly, it would be so much easier just to, I believe all of it.
What about in the sense of the fact that there is no ultimate justice, ultimate responsibility for your actions, that something that you can never walk away from? Do you think that gives you some relief from your actions, from the consequences of your actions? In other words, I believe that I have to answer for everything. I get away with it now. I can close the door and I can do something nobody sees, but ultimately I have to answer for it. But you don't have that, because once you are gone, you're gone. It's gone, right? Whatever you did is gone. It's forgotten, right? So you don't ever have long-term consequences to deal with. So my question is that what people mean when they say it's the easy way out? Like you relieve yourself of that duty?
I feel like what they mean is there's nobody watching.
I mean, you can't go crazy right now, because if you just shot the place up, your life's gonna be ruined and you're gonna go to jail and whatever. But you don't ever have to answer that once you're dead. Like that's what I was saying to you, I think one time, the worst you can do is kill me. you really have no power over me. This world has no power over me, because the worst you can do is kill me, right?
Yeah,
and when I die, I just go on to a better place, right? So, so there's that. But I guess what we're talking about is from atheist point of view. What do you think about that? What do you think about kind of unhitching yourself from that cosmic responsibility?
Well, I think that you and I are in the same position on this earth, right? Mm-hmm. So if I do something terrible to Aaron, and especially if it's a crime of some sort, if I rob you or
but just anything
physically
bad.
assault you in any way, we have natural consequences here on earth. We have laws, we have punishments, we have jails, we have all that kind of stuff. So we're the same in that, right? Mm-hmm. The fact that you think that there's something beyond and I don't, to me, it makes this time here more special and more critical, because I don't have the luxury. If I do something that offends you, right? And I know, man, Aaron hates me now, right? I don't get to go home alone by myself and really pray about it and really think about it and say, Lord, forgive me for that, and then 30 minutes later, I feel better because I've talked to the Lord about it and He's forgiven me. Aaron might not, but that's on him, because I know that I've talked to the man in charge and He's forgiven. I don't have that, right?
I don't think I have that either. I think I still have to. I would have to still address it with you. I would address it with God,
right?
But I still have to make peace with you.
Well, that's what we're in this. We're the same in those things,
yeah.
And so, but for me, I don't get that sense of being able to feel forgiven or feel whatever.
Yeah.
I have to make amends with the person that I offended, and if that person chooses not to accept my apology and not to mend the relationship, I have to walk around knowing I've damaged that relationship, sometimes irreparably. And so there's nothing for me to go to make me feel better about it.
It's interesting because the way that the picture is painted from the atheist point of view, that there is, a policeman in the sky that I have to, not offend, that I'm constantly trying to keep happy, right, with my behavior. And that couldn't be further from the truth.
It's not just that role. It's also somebody that I can come to and say, look, Aaron won't forgive me. Will you forgive me?
Yeah, but it's...
Yeah. So that's not a policeman. It's more like it's a constant get out of jail free card. And I don't have one of those.
But it's not a get out of jail free card, because, and here's why I'm going to say, from an atheist point of view, because to you, it's a phantom. It doesn't have teeth, that you don't think of it in a very real way. In other words, Jesus is a person. He's God, fully man. But if He was here in front of us, He would appear as a man, right? So one day, it's not one day there's this ethereal spirit that is either going to send me to heaven or hell. That is, I am going to be sent to heaven or hell one day. But there's an actual person who I have offended in my life.
A human.
Mm-hmm. Jesus.
Okay.
Jesus, right? That I have offended through my actions, that I'm going to have to stand in front of and give account for what I did and why I did it. Now, He loves me, and I know that I'm His child and I'm forgiven, but I still have to look Him in the eyes and explain myself. And that is very real. It's not just like a phantom in the sky. It's a conversation with a real person that I'm going to have. Someone that I owe everything to, because he got me. He was able to rescue me from the doom I was already in. Right.
Okay.
So, anyways, my point. That's a little bit of a side track, I think, but my point is that it's real. It's not just like a spirit in the sky.
I get that, and the reason we were saying we went down that road is because the question was, what is atheism the easy way out?
Yeah.
So it seems like neither one of us really feel like we have the easy way out.
Yeah.
But do we both feel like the other one does?
Well, I guess so, because you're like, oh, I can just ask for forgiveness and I'm forgiven, and I'm like, yeah, you don't have any cosmic responsibility. So
right.
Yeah, but
so it seems almost like both sides think the other one has the easy way out, but theirs is the tougher road.
Yeah. I think, yeah. And my guess would be, if I'm just kind of shooting from the hip here, my guess would be just in analyzing the way you describe the interaction is I don't see sin as just like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I forgive you. It's cool. It's all good.
Right.
It's not. It's
Yeah.
more. It's more like I was tortured and murdered because you did that. Right.
I see. You place a lot more weight to it, whereas I don't think there's anything there anyway, and so I don't feel that weight of it.
Yeah.
And instead, I look at the forgiveness part of it, and I'm like, yeah, I don't have that.
Yeah.
It's up to me to make amends and up to me to repair those relationships here on earth. And if I don't, then that's somebody I no longer get to spend time with, and I have to deal with the ramifications here and now while I am living. So, but I get what you're saying about you. There's a lot more weight to it and a lot more depth in your belief.
So, well, since we're talking about Jesus, your next question was, suppose the Messiah came in recent years, how would people react?
Yeah, if he hadn't come 2,000 years ago, but instead he came in this day and age, what do we think the reaction would be?
I mean, I think probably the same. I think there are people who saw him do miracles and didn't believe. There were people who he raised people from the dead. He, fed people with the loaves and fishes. He walked on water, which I guess only his disciples saw him do that. But he healed people, and still they didn't believe. And I think that people would probably react the same way. I do think it would be a little bit harder. This is going to sound really stupid, but just because of like cameras and deep fake and special effects. And I think, I mean, dude, I could show you a video of a miracle. That doesn't mean it looks real. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean it happened, dude. That just means somebody's good with a computer.
Right.
So I think that would be difficult.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we do have people walking around today claiming to be the second coming of Christ, claiming to be, messiahs, claiming, Waco, David Koresh, and the Branch Davidians, and all those followers that died in that tragedy. They completely believe that David Koresh was in some way the second coming or reincarnation of Christ. To me, I just feel like as a species, you're going to have some people convinced that there's still cults right now. There's cults going on today, and they take on various forms. And when you watch the documentaries about them, you're like, how do people get swept up in that? How do you convince somebody, hey, everybody's going to move to this commune and I'm going to sleep with your wife, and you're going to give all of your assets to the organization? And I'm like, how do people get swept up like that?
Now, you can see a difference. I'm trying to ask questions. Can you see a difference between someone like Jesus and someone like a cult leader like David Koresh?
Man, that's a good question. And
in your mind, are they just all kind of the same, or?
I genuinely believe that he was an eccentric preacher from the day that a small group of people went over the deep end, believing and helping to facilitate different things. I'm sure if we talked to a bunch of Branch Davidians, especially before all the fire and explosions and all that, if you just gotten a chance to talk, they would tell you that David Koresh, and they would be 100% authentic in their, that they would tell you that he had done different miracles, that he was, had special powers, that he.
What about like when you read the Bible and you read the things he said, like the sermons he gave and the way he engaged with people? I mean, it was pretty flawless, right? Like, you're not going to go in there and be like, ooh, dang, Jesus was a jerk right there, or that wasn't a good response by Jesus. Like, isn't that? Do you think that's interesting? As you read the interactions, like he's pretty flawless in what he said.
The short answer right now is I don't know, and I'm curious about that, and I want to dig more into it. We have a mutual friend, who did not find faith by getting swept up in miracle stories or an explanation for the beginning of the universe or anything like that. It was specifically Jesus's words that gripped his heart and said, that's something that I want to base my life on. Specifically, the Sermon on the Mount is what got him. Now, I've heard other people say to tell people not to plan for tomorrow, to only think about me. If you don't love me more than your wife, husband, kid, then you're not worthy. some people look at those teachings and say that's terrible to say. And so I'm going to dig more into it and specifically go through some of those things. And I know somebody says, well, Jesus said it, so it's all good. Well, let's look critically about it. If someone tells somebody, you love me more than your own family, your own kids, give up thrift, give up planning for tomorrow, because none of that matters. The only thing that matters is your love for, for this God. I don't know if that's good preaching. And even C.S. Lewis said, you can only look at these things as good if you believe that he is who he says he is.
Yeah.
If you don't think that he is who he says he is, a lot of his preachings are either complete madness or just pure evil if you don't go along with the belief.
Yeah, no, I was actually going to say that. I said, as you read it from a Christian perspective. As you read it, think about, all right, let's assume everything he says about himself is true, right? Is what he's saying wrong? And I think that if you say to Patricia, you love me only, just put me first, don't worry about anybody else, which obviously he's not telling you not to do that. But if you were saying to Patricia, I'll put it more in his words, your love for me better be just more than anybody else. It better seem like you hate people for how much you love me, right? You would see, you say that, or I say that, and you're like, that sounds crazy. However, Jesus is saying that from his position as the Son of God. So then the question I would be asking my mind is, okay, does that make it different, right? Because now he's not you, he's not me, right? And it does sound crazy when you and I say it, but he's of a different type, So anyway, my point was,
if you already believe it, it seems great. If you don't believe it, then he seems like an eccentric preacher, a cult of personality kind of thing.
And you got to read the whole thing too, because he'll say that sentence, and then there'll be 2 chapters of him telling you how to be good to each other, right? So it's not like it's not important,
right?
He even said, the first commandment, the greatest commandment is love God, and the next, which is equally important, is love your neighbor.
Yeah,
right.
But look, so the question is, if somebody came today, how would we? How would society react to that? And I think that society would just view him as some eccentric preacher and probably not give it much attention. Maybe if there was some miracles, he would start to get a little bit more traction and start people go, hey, let's see what's going on there. Then you would obviously have all the magicians and all the other people saying, no, let me show you how we fake that. I fake it all the time.
And
come see me, I'll be here all week.
And I think it's a little bit of a theological question, because obviously there's intentionality in God's plan when Jesus came, when he came at that time for that reason. So if he came now, it would be his plan to come now, and so he would be expecting a particular type of reception. So maybe in that case he would get it. But if you're just asking me now, looking at people, I think he would.
You think there would be different miracles?
I think so. I think it speaks to the time.
Like, hey, if we come in this time, then all you got to do is like feed 5,000. But man, if you come here and they've got cameras and they've got all this, expensive equipment, and they can research things and they can find. We're gonna have to do so much.
Yeah, that'll be way too much. I can't get it done in 3 years, guys. So I think it'd be different. And I would agree with you. I don't think he'd be accepted. I just think the world. Think about this too. Like, we are so distracted, right? We're rarely where we are in the moment.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And there's so many competing worldviews. It used to be before phones, you had your town. That was your competing worldviews, right?
Right.
And maybe the next town, right?
Now your town is national, if not global.
Global, right? I can literally put my mind into what's going on in India.
Yeah.
And make it my business.
Right.
And so that kind of distraction,
Right.
He would not have been able to isolate himself with 12 people and do his thing, right? Jesus.
Yeah.
Now, the way he did then, right?
Right.
You'd have the paparazzi. That would be the miracle. God, make the paparazzi disappear.
Yeah. I think it'd be a lot more challenging. What do we got next?
I agree. This one is, what's with all the blood? Why?
Yeah. Hey, Aaron.
Yeah.
Look, I got a question for you.
Why not water, tears, or other vital fluids we couldn't live without?
Yeah.
Why not air or breath?
Yeah. Like, look, our body's like 90 something percent water, right? Why isn't water the most special thing? You know, we can't live without air. You know, if you cut off my air, I die also.
So when you say what's with all the blood,
Yeah.
are you specifically talking about Jesus dying on the cross blood?
You got to be washed in the blood. You got to be, by his stripes we are healed.
Okay.
By, you know, it's all about the blood. You know.
So that's a theological question.
Okay.
And
it seems like blood worship, blood magic. You know. So
well, if we're biblically speaking, so as you're asking this question, we're assuming that what the Bible says is true. Otherwise, this won't make sense, right?
Okay,
so,
I'll try.
Right. So, according to the Bible, the life is in the blood. We're instructed to not drink blood, right? We're expected to respect blood, and God says that life is in the blood, right?
Yeah,
so what? Hold on.
Okay.
Right. And then, so that's some things in the Old Testament. Now, if your question is why did God make blood the most important thing, that's not really a question. That,
No.
you know,
My question is more, why
because blood is vital to who you are.
So are all the other things.
Right. But I mean, I guess the question is,
Why wasn't it the water of life?
well, I mean, I guess the Spirit is described as water, but Jesus, why is it? I guess the question is, there is no answer to that question. In other words, God doesn't say, I'm going to focus on blood because of X, Y, and Z.
It just seems like there's a huge importance on blood.
Yeah.
Whereas we also can't live without air.
Yeah.
We also couldn't live without water.
But what's
We're actually composed of a large degree of water.
But if the focus was on the water, then we would be sitting here and you'd be asking me, why isn't it more like blood? Because blood's so vital, right? You know what I mean? Like I guess I'm trying to understand the question. If it's a theological question, God says life is in the blood, and without the shedding of blood, there can be no forgiveness of sins. He set that system up. Now, if your question, why did God do that? He has not told me yet.
You know, in some other beliefs, they talk a lot about, you know, your aura, your essence, your energy, these other things, right? When you look at Christianity, you know, it's like the story of Passover and the blood over the doorway. You know, when you accept salvation, you're washed in the blood, you know.
The blood of the shedding of the blood of Jesus is so important.
Right. When they take communion, right? This represents the blood, and you're drinking it, and it's like, man, these guys are like a real kind of blood worship.
Well, the reason that there's focus on blood in theology like that about Jesus is because it's the actual physical shedding of his blood is what was the path for us to be forgiven. In other words, it wasn't enough for him to just have a heart attack and die. Right. The blood had to be shed.
Well, like during Passover, why did God want to see blood over the doorway?
So that represents Christ, because you put blood they didn't know it at the time. I'm sorry. This is anachronistically looking back. We now see that it was an image, a foreshadowing of Christ, because you had the blood at the top and on the side posts, and the blood from the top would drip down. So you're kind of making the cross and blood over your door to save you from the angel of death, to save you from death. So it's a foreshadowing of Jesus.
I've never heard the drip.
I think
I've never heard that line.
That put the blood up there and it would drip down. So, but that's why anachronistically now that we have the whole revelation, we go, oh yeah, that's an image of Jesus. Actually, the entire Old Testament is one big picture of Jesus.
That seems a bit ad hoc. It seems a bit, you know, if you do it in this way, it kind of seems to, it looks cool and it kind of gives it meaning. And
what's that now?
Like, is that in the Bible?
Yeah.
Put it here and here so that the drip and it makes a really.
Yeah. I'm not just making that up.
Okay, you have to show me that. That's fascinating. I've never.
So in the Passover, this Exodus,
right?
You know.
So to me, the Passover, the way I understood it, in essence, it's given something. I want to see that you give up something because you love me, right? I don't want anything else to be more important to you than me. So I want you to sacrifice something. So I want you to take an animal, and it can't be just some little rut you find running out there in the yard. It has to be your prized, top of the line, you know, your best animal. And I want you to sacrifice that thing and show me that you've sacrificed that thing by killing it and taking the blood of that thing and putting it over the doorway. And by the way,
And what does that sacrifice do?
hang on. And by the way, when I come through town, if I see that, then I'll know that you love me more than anything else, and I won't come in the house and kill the firstborn.
Now,
but if I don't, then there's going to be some dying going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it seems just a lot. It seems a real fascination with. It seems that God has a real fascination with blood. Wants to see it. Wants to see things be sacrificed. Wants to know that He's the most important. And you're going to do this by something has got to suffer and bleed. And
But actually, the interesting part in the Old Testament, I'm going to paraphrase, but there's a verse that says God takes no delight in the death of animals, the burnt sacrifice.
why did He?
Well, okay, so what?
What's with all the sacrifice?
So in the Old Testament, you're talking about the Passover, right?
Mm-hmm.
With in Exodus, I guess, and with the angel of death, right? But going further in Judaism, what was the sacrificing of the animal for?
I don't know.
It was for the forgiveness of your sins, and you were supposed to take your best animal, and offer it as a sacrifice,
right?
And then the blood would be sprinkled onto another lamb, and the lamb was sent away.
A scapegoat,
right?
That's the whole concept
right?
of scapegoating.
Okay,
right.
So do you see the image of Christ in that? God gave us His best. He took his perfect. That's why Jesus called the Lamb of God, the Lamb without blemish. Right? Took His best, gave us His best in Jesus.
Okay.
And let Jesus be sacrificed for us to escape sin, right? That's how we find forgiveness. That sacrifice of that animal is in a perfect mirror image of what God did through Jesus on the cross. Only thing is, the blood of animal can't actually get rid of your sins, but the blood of Jesus actually got rid of your sins.
Why does God need this?
Well, because, like I said before, sin is not just wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I'll just forgive you. It's cool. There's this idea of cosmic of justice, right? God is holy, and one of His attributes is love. That's the one we like to talk about. Mm-hmm. One of His attributes is also justice, and so it's not justice if He just goes, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Someone's got to pay the price.
What is justice?
Biblically speaking, what is justice? Oh, that's a good one, man. We could do that for a while. I was actually looking up justice in Islam. Justice, I think justice is receiving what you deserve.
Getting what you deserve.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where's the justice in Jesus' sacrifice, the sacrifice of Jesus? Where's the justice?
Okay, so let's start with God the Father. Okay? We are sinners, right? We violate His laws. If we just pull out the 10 Commandments, just the 10 Commandments, ain't one of us that's batting 1,000 on that. We've all broken probably all of them.
He views us as sinners,
right?
I got it.
No, don't say He views us as sinners, because that's the wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We are sinners that violate His law, that sin against His holiness. Right? Okay. So He's holy. We're sinners. We cannot be in His presence because we are not good. Okay. He's got to bridge that gap.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Your question was why? Oh, okay. So He's got to punish our sin. It's like He has to. He has to, since He is perfect justice, we'll say, He can't just overlook the sin. He's got to do the right thing, right? There has to be justice. So
my question was, why did Jesus have to be sacrificed?
Mm-hmm. Because then
you said because justice.
Yeah, because there's so it's either so someone's got to pay, right?
Okay.
So what happened on the cross was Jesus died, He was killed, and all of our sins were placed on Him. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so He is our substitution. Okay, penal substitutionary atonement is the cool Calvinist word. Anyway. He's the substitution. All our sins were put on Him. So someone did pay the price for my mistakes, right? It's just that when I become a Christian, God doesn't look to me to pay the price. Mm-hmm. He says, oh no, my Son paid the price for you. But justice is still served. His perfect justice remains intact because the punishment for the wrongdoing was satisfied.
Okay, so justice is getting what we deserve.
Yeah. So
Okay.
if you don't
So
believe,
I got a question.
yeah.
Okay. So in this scenario, do we get what we deserve?
Well, if you're a Christian, no, you get mercy.
Okay, we get mercy. Mm-hmm. Okay. Did Jesus get what he deserved?
No, Jesus was the only true innocent victim.
Okay, so we didn't get what we deserved. Mm-hmm. Jesus didn't get what he deserved. Where's the justice?
So that's a really good question. What we deserved was paid for by Jesus, right? So the punishment for our sins was paid by Jesus. So when you become a Christian, God gives you his mercy, right? And so, but your tab is paid. Here's the thing. It's not just a ledger in your mind. It's not just a thing that's not real. It's actually like the punishment for my sin was put on him. So the pain, the punishment that I should have received physically, actually received, the justice was put on him, and he actually experienced it, right? It's not just a transaction in a ledger. It's an actual thing that happens. So there is justice there. Now, did Jesus receive justice? No, but he's the God sacrificing himself. So
look, when there's something between me and you,
yeah,
right? And you say, man, Gary, I feel really bad about this, man. I acted, completely wrongly. Will you forgive me, right? I have the ability to say, man, I appreciate that. Yes. Mm-hmm. I accept your apology.
Right.
I forgive you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't need, a pound of flesh, or I don't need a sacrifice, right? Why can't he just forgive?
Because
I can, you can. He gave us the ability to forgive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is he incapable of forgiving without something? I'm going to need to see a sacrifice. I'm going to need to see some punishment. I want some blood. I want, I can forgive you. It's going to hurt. I mean, does he lack that ability?
It doesn't. I mean, God could do anything he wants, I guess. I have to think about that.
Why does he want that then? Why does he want?
When I'm thinking about that statement, he can't just do anything he wants because he couldn't lie or something like that. But and the thing is, Gary, is where I think where your thinking goes wrong is you imagine this buffet of choices, of ideas.
Well, I'm trying not to put a limit on God.
Well, but there are limits on God, right?
In terms of impossibility or something that goes against his nature.
Yeah.
So in other words, he couldn't lie.
Right.
I get that. Why is it in his nature that he can't forgive without?
Well, it's not that it's in his nature that he can't forgive, because he forgives a lot of people. But there's
he only does that because he himself, because if you believe in the Trinity, he sent part of himself so that he could have a sacrifice.
God, dude, your theology is so bad.
Where am I wrong?
I know what you're trying to say. I'm just saying the words you use are like, the words you use are just like, I know the idea you're trying to say. It's the words you use.
Okay, articulate that for me better then.
God didn't send part of himself. The Trinity is three persons sharing the one being of God. It's not a third of God came to earth. It's three persons, co-equal persons sharing the one being of God. Now,
it's ironic that somebody who holds close to three distincts yet being one will say, "Oh, your language is so."
Well, you said God sent a part of himself.
Is that not amazing?
It sounded like God sent his leg.
Well, anyway.
Because justice is also part of, like, forgiveness, justice, all of these things are part of God, and it has to be satisfied. I would say it can't just be overlooked. That's the thing, right? And I keep saying this, the wink, wink, nudge, nudge. He cannot just turn his back on it. He cannot just say, you messed up, but I'm just going to pretend like you didn't, right? When you and I have something between us, very frequently the person who wrongs, if I wrong you, there's an expectation that I make it right as best I can, right? And maybe just making it right is apologizing, right? But if I stole from you, making it right would be giving you the money back, right? If I hurt you, maybe paying your doctor bills. There's an expectation I make it right. That's that thing of justice. Now, if I just hurt your feelings, there's nothing I can do except for say I'm sorry, take it back, and try to repair your feelings.
Okay.
But there is an exchange there. It's not, and no one ever, you don't do it. You don't just go, I know, Aaron was a jerk to me, but I'll never think of it again. Right? No, it's a little different.
Okay.
But yeah, no, God can't just walk away from the evil that's happening. It's got to be dealt with. And it is dealt with. The evil that's happening now will be dealt with at a later date. And the sin of the people he's choosing to save is dealt with through Jesus. So there's no loose ends. And now, why is there a cosmic reason for that? I don't know.
Okay. All right. So our next one on the list is, I haven't even read the end of this question, so I'm just going to start it off.
Your question is like a paragraph.
I know. I see that. Since this omnipotent being gave us so much and provided a sacrifice, like we were just talking about, why didn't he provide clarity to avoid all these different interpretations and denominations? If this is the creator of the universe and he's all powerful, why couldn't he at least deliver a clear message that would not be misinterpreted? You could still accept or reject, right? But at least it's just a clear, this is the deal.
Well, my first reaction is I would not agree with you that the message isn't clear.
Clearly, you know that there's a lot of different denominations and followers of Christ. There are people that claim to be Christians that you say have bad theology. I think I've heard you say that about Catholics, about various groups. But they claim to have a personal relationship with this same being, but yet they can't agree on.
So, yeah, but
who's got it actually figured out.
You're putting the burden on the message, right? You're putting the burden on God's words. Why aren't they clearer? And I'm saying they are clear. People are people. Okay. Like the problem is not the Bible. The problem's not the Bible. The problem is the people.
I see what you're saying.
You know, and that's why you think of denominations.
Let me just make sure I understand it. You know, because it's almost like you could put a sign outside in front of a place and says, you know, to gain admission, walk around to the right side of the building and knock 3 times, and you will get in. Sign is as clear as can be, and still you will have people pounding on that door. You'll have people walking the wrong way around the building. It's like
it's in the door. It says use this door, and the arrow's like right there, and you grab the one.
It's like herding a bunch of cats.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there's always people with questions, and you're constantly taking them back to the sign and going, "Hey, man, did you happen to notice the
Such
sign
a great
on the wall?"
description.
But I mean, that's kind of
it's so true.
Okay, I see.
It's so true.
Okay, so
and people
you're
are
saying,
still, and you're like, come on, man.
Right. So you're saying he did give clarity. But we are all over the parking lot here, and we're climbing over the building. We're trying to. I mean, we're a train wreck out here. Okay.
Because you have your whole life of experiences happening, right?
Yeah, that we filter everything through.
Yeah, your worldview. So yes, that's where it comes from. Now, you think of denominations as a knock on Christianity. I think a lot of atheists do think of the fact that there's multiple denominations as some sort of knock, but.
Hang on, I want to move into that for just.
Okay.
I mean, do I think of that as a weakness or a bad thing or
I mean, I
honestly don't think that I do. I mean, for me personally, right? All these different denominations and that's just in one faith, and then you add on all the different various faiths. Like Judaism, there's all different kinds of, you got Orthodox, you got, non-practicing, you got, and so each denomination has all these different things. I don't look at it as that's a bad thing. To me, I view it as this is exactly what you would get if there was no God capable of anything, because you just have a bunch of humans running around here trying to figure out the world the best they can. They'll come up with systems to regulate and organize and create a society. So what I see around us is exactly what I feel you would expect if there was no God. But since there is, according to some worldviews, this all-powerful, all-knowing, I'm like, wow, if that's true, seems like there would be a lot more clarity about it.
Well, so to me, when I see denominations, I just like-minded people will gather, right? I'm going to go hang out with people that are like me, right?
Okay.
That's what I do. And when I go to other churches, regardless of their theology or whatever, I might go there and be like, this crowd's a little bit older, or this crowd's a little bit younger, or this isn't my style.
I mean, that's kind of your current situation now.
Yeah, I Reformed theology, but I've been to Reformed churches, and they're a little bit of a drag. So I like my Pentecostal church.
Okay.
It's a little more exciting, a little more interesting, and they preach the truth. So,
Okay.
But yeah, I just see like-minded people gathering. Also, if you want, I see the world the way you would expect it to be if God created man, and then man is in this fallen state where he's trying to he's trying to make that relationship with God and,
Right.
and like you said, figure it out.
Right.
And then you are going to see that kind of spread.
Okay,
So it's funny.
I think we've worked back to that sign in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Okay, no. Gary, remember, there is clarity, but we're just,
And then God would just look at Adam and go, see what you did?
Okay.
This is your fault.
All right. Okay. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Okay. So I think the next one's for you.
Well, how can atheists be so sure of some things while also accepting we don't know so much? Why is it I don't know what caused everything, but I'm confident it's not what you say? Why are atheists like that?
Yeah.
I think so. Here's
I don't know how the universe got here, but it's not your guy.
Yeah, I know that for a fact.
So that kind of goes into the atheist baggage that I was talking about. If you're going to deny all the various creation stories, then what's yours? And how do you, and of course we go back to evolution and biology, genetics, and in our opinion, I know you don't agree with all of it, but in our opinion, science does take us a long way back. Does it take us to the actual origin? No, we do reach a point of, I don't really know, but we're working on it.
Yeah.
And to us, it doesn't do us any favors at that point to say, oh, God did it. We're okay saying that there's some things that we don't know, but we're going to keep working. And so,
do you think Christians think they know everything? Do you think that the Christians also say, I don't know? I mean, if you're just talking about, say, the world of science, of course Christians are going to be like, yeah, I don't know that either. I mean, God is the ultimate cause of everything. You can pick anything, and I'm going to be like, yeah, God's the ultimate cause of that. So that's sort of not really saying anything. But in the context of the world of like our lived experience, there are some gaping holes in our lived experience that atheism doesn't address. Right?
I'm gonna make sure. How can atheists be so
because
sure
I don't think
things?
your question's about like the beginning of the world. Is your question things like that? Is your question like, we don't know how the world started? Oh, I do. God made it. Or
well, let's read it again.
Or is your question like more foundational?
I don't
like
even know.
Worldview.
I barely remember what I was writing that day. Let's read it again.
you were shotgunning them out.
No. How can atheists be? So, I'm going to read it with a little bit of attitude. Maybe it'll help me get it a little bit. Because I think I might have been.
Maybe I'll understand you better.
I think I might have been a little bit spicy that day.
Yeah.
So I was coming out firing. How can atheists be so sure of some things while also accepting that we don't know so much? Why is it? I don't know what caused everything, but I'm confident it's not what you say. Yeah, where do they get this confidence from to say?
I just know it's not that.
I don't know a lot of things, but I do know it's not what you had.
It's funny. Sorry.
I think the reason why that we come up with that is because we hold to a naturalistic worldview, and we say, look, we're going to find an explanation for these things. And when we run across things that we don't understand, whether it be some mutation, in the animal kingdom, or it be some natural strange thing that we find, we do believe that we'll come up with a natural explanation for it. And so when the magic comes, we call it magic. I know that some believers feel it's disrespectful. Sorry. So when we see miracles, supernatural, dead people coming back alive, or walking on water, or any of those type things, we tend to we tend to blow it off, and the reason that we do is because it gets outside of what we think is normal or natural, or we have no reason to believe. We don't feel like we have any reason to believe in a supernatural,
right?
And we don't feel like it's possible to demonstrate, to test, to to conjure in any way, so that we can verify it to ourselves.
Yeah.
And I mean, many atheists are like, man, there's some days when I almost wish it was true. I really wish, my mom's very ill right now. I really wish that there was some power I could call on I mean, what do I need to do? I mean, let's get back to the sacrifice. Is there an amount of myself that I would need to cut off and say, okay, with this, will you heal my mom? And there's not. You could just keep on trimming, and then eventually you're not here anymore, and that problem still exists. Yeah. So we don't feel like there's any kind of supernatural to call on to. So we stick with the natural world, and even though we don't have everything figured out, we say, well, we're still working on that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't give us reason to then pull in the supernatural.
Yeah.
So.
That's I get that. I mean, if you start with a naturalistic worldview, I can see how that frames the way you understand things. In response to that, I would say the naturalistic worldview and atheism being part of that has been, to me, demonstrated to be false. I say that
so you feel
unequivocally demonstrated to be false.
So you feel like you have proof of the supernatural?
I think
that the supernatural, the existence of the supernatural has been proven.
Well,
at least to satisfy you.
Yeah. So, but that's a different question, actually. I'm saying the naturalistic explanation, the atheist worldview, has been demonstrated to be false. Now, maybe also Christianity's false. That's a different question.
Well, what did I miss?
Because it can't provide. And you're not going to like this.
Okay.
This was the spicy podcast.
Okay. All right.
It does not provide the necessary foundations for us to experience the world. It doesn't give us the necessary foundations for science, for philosophy, for ethics, for morals, for logic, for math, for that cell phone. For nothing. And I think that is a huge glaring hole that Christians don't have. And the atheist position is typically that people are born atheist, and at some point in their life they add God, and once they add God, now they can start answering questions that we couldn't answer before, and we just fill it with God. We'll just add God to that. Okay. I'm going to propose that it's actually the opposite. That man is born knowing that there is a God. We're born made in the image of God, and we're born knowing that there's a God. And the world makes sense with God. Eventually, what happens is the troubles of this world turn your mind, and you remove God from the picture. And once you remove God, things don't make sense anymore, right? And so it's not that adding God makes things make sense. It does. But the fact that you removed God is why things don't make sense, right? That's how I would say. So it's just the opposite.
Yeah.
But again, that's a big topic. Maybe we'll get into it at the Conco.
I'm sure we will. All right. So the next one's for you.
Are atheists mad at God? I mean, yeah.
You think we're mad at God?
No, you're in rebellion. And rebellion takes many forms. Rebellion, everything that you do is in rebellion against God. Yeah. And so you're going to deny it.
Sure.
That's fine. You're actually just living out what the Bible told me you would say, right? It is the state. And it takes many forms. It takes the angry form. It also takes the calm form like you, right? So it doesn't, when I say rebel, I don't mean that you're just driving down the road like flipping God the bird constantly. Rebellion takes many forms.
On some days.
Hinduism is rebellion against God. Islam is rebellion against God. Buddhism is rebellion against God. Atheism is rebellion against God.
What about Catholics?
Catholic ideology, not the people, The ideology is
So,
rebellion.
so essentially every ideology except for yours specific.
Bro, there are two worldviews. There's the Christian worldview and everything else.
Yeah, but like,
And
okay.
everything else is some version of not the Christian
Yeah,
worldview.
but you just gave me all these religious worldviews, even Catholics, that you say they're in rebellion against God. So, all right, so let me ask you this. Is your belief system also in rebellion against God?
Bro, my beliefs are spot on perfect. Yeah, some of them would be in rebellion against the truth, against God. No, Catholics are not. Here's the thing: Catholics are not. We're all rebelling against God in a way. Now, God has had mercy on me, and I'm saved, but I'm a human, so I just do things rebellious. I just do things against Him, right? So that's the form of the rebellion that I take. That's the form my rebellion takes. Okay. Right? So everyone is ultimately rebelling, but false religions are just a type of rebellion.
All right. Well, since this question was directed at atheists, I'll answer it for.
Okay.
No, we're not mad at God. We're not mad at Satan. We're not mad at demons or angels or spirits of dead ancestors or anything else in the supernatural realm. We just simply don't believe that any of it exists. We believe we live and die here on this earth, and when we're gone, that's it. We're gone. Mm-hmm. And that will bother me as much after I'm gone as it did for the millions of years before I was born. Not at all. I would just be completely unaware. And so, no, we're not mad at God no more than you're mad at Darth Vader or, the Tooth Fairy or anything else. You don't believe those things exist. We don't believe your thing exists. So we're not mad at it. What we are frustrated by and do get very worked up about is religion. And so we're mad at the people who take these beliefs and then use those beliefs in order to exact control and influence and power over other people through legislation, through family coercion. When you shun somebody from your community because they've expressed a lack of belief in some of your things, and so then you reject them and they're an outcast, and they lose all their support and all that kind of stuff. Those types of behaviors, or when you push to get laws passed that say, this will be the law of the land because of my religious beliefs, that's when we really start having a problem. But we don't believe this being exists. And so, no, we're not mad at that at all, but we are mad at people that use that belief to hurt other people.
Yeah, and I think anyone that uses Christianity to hurt someone or to control someone or do any number of bad things, we would agree on that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to live under Sharia law.
Now, hold on. I didn't specifically go after the law thing, but y'all are just doing the same thing in reverse. You guys are making laws that you don't care if it violates any of my beliefs. You want the law you want, and that's the way it is. And so give
me an example.
Abortion laws.
Well, there's no law saying that you have to go get an abortion.
No, there's not a law saying I have to go get an abortion, but there's state-funded abortion. My money goes to pay for abortions.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. So it offends you because they're taking your money and it goes to support something that you don't agree with.
Yes, but abortion's kind of a sticky one. It offends me because I think it's killing innocent children.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me ask you this:
so
if your money wasn't involved, would you still make?
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying.
Because so
I don't think. So in that way, I think you're taking an easy way out. I want to call you on this, right? In that way, I think you're taking an easy way out by saying, yeah, but my tax money. Because even if the tax money wasn't involved, you would still want to make the law to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just focus on that.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So there's no law. Atheists are not wanting a law that says you have to have an abortion. Right?
No, you're right. No, you're not. You're not saying that you want me to have an abortion.
How does that affect you then?
I think the killing of innocent children affects everybody. I think we all have an obligation to stand up and say, no, that's wrong. I don't care where it happens or in what form.
Right.
Right? If it happens when they're 5 or it happens when they're 1 day,
I
think it's all the same. And I'm when I say kill a child, I'm not trying to say that to make atheists mad. I'm trying to reiterate it from my worldview. So don't ever forget that that's what I'm saying. The reason I don't say a fetus or abort, but I say kill a child, is to just reiterate, don't forget that's what I think, right? That's why it's so serious. Because I actually don't want to just have the Magic Sky Daddy version of that kind of language. I don't want to use that kind of language. So if I say that and you're like, I wish you wouldn't say it that way. Can we find something that like kill a human? Is that okay?
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I don't see the potential, you know?
Yeah.
And people have taught before, like, look, if you've got eggs and some flour and some butter, you know, that's not a cake.
Right.
But it has the potential for being a cake. When you kill a human, you know, let's say you kill a 30-year-old human. Well, they've experienced some life, they've experienced some love between, and they're aware of all this left to come. They're aware that something precious is being taken from them, all that kind of stuff. A fetus is not. You know, they're not all of those things.
Yeah.
And then there is still some dispute about when the brain develops, the heart, and all those types of things. So if you don't yet have brain function, but somebody wants to give that thing the right to vote, it's like, hey, wait a minute, there's some disconnect right there.
Well, I think the fact that there's all of those questions and all that hem-hawing around is good evidence that it's kind of an inconsistent argument. It's probably not true, that it's not a human. And I would say that my definition, like my stance against abortion is, you know, because I'm a Christian, but I can state it without invoking God, just that a human is a human from the moment of conception. It's from the beginning, it's a human, and all humans deserve equal protection under the law.
Funny though that you mentioned equal protection, because, you know, for instance, then you start to get into the issue of bodily autonomy. And does another human get the right to use your body in order to survive?
Can we just say, in abortion, the baby is the only innocent party? There's the only person who we cannot put blame on. You cannot look at a woman who gets pregnant and the baby that she created and then say, how dare you, baby, be inside me? Like, that argument to me is beyond absurd.
Okay, so what if that woman was raped? Is she now filled with fault also?
Let me ask you a question.
You said who was the only blameless one? What about the 12-year-old girl that got raped by her uncle? What did she do wrong?
Okay, my question to you would be, when did we start killing kids for the sins of their fathers?
I guess when we started raping kids.
Well, no. Okay, so the answer to a rape is a murder. That's how you solve it. It doesn't solve anything. I would say a couple things.
Terminate that pregnancy before it becomes a human being.
Which you can't even tell me when that is. So I would say, one, how does killing the babe or killing the human inside the person doesn't change the fact of the rape? Two, why do children of rape have no value? And three,
well, in your scenario, the rape victims have no value either. Look,
yeah, they do.
12-year-old girl gets raped. 12-year-old girl gets raped by her uncle or a perfect stranger in the park or whatever, results in a pregnancy, and you would pass laws that say, "Hey, little girl, I'm sorry that happened to you. You're going to carry that baby."
Let me ask you this: what argument do you think you're going to give me where I go?
Probably not.
No, hold on. Where I go? Oh yeah, we should kill the kids. Right? Like, I'm never going to say that.
Right.
Because life's tough, little girl. I'm sorry. Life is tough. And we should come around her and support her, and she shouldn't have to pay for it. And
but she shouldn't be able to. But she should
we should
not
do
be
everything
able to.
we can to support her. But killing a human doesn't solve anything. It doesn't make it better. It only makes it worse. So now we have a rape and a murder. Like, you see what I'm saying? It doesn't make it better.
I hear you. I vehemently disagree.
Yeah. But I mean, that's because you don't see it. You don't give it the same value I do. We should definitely table this for next time. I would love to continue to work through this with you.
Yeah.
But we have come to the end of our time here today.
Okay.
So,
all right, are we going to the hockey game tonight?
Oh, we are, dude. I cannot wait.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're going to love these seats, dude. You're going to love these seats. They're awesome.
Good. Man, thank you again for another great conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you again for this week. You helped me out tremendously.
No problem.
And it was a big help helping me get through a rough week.
Good.
So
I'm glad I was able to help.
I truly appreciate it.
I'm glad we were able to go 90 minutes without getting at each other. This was a very enjoyable 90 minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, very much so.
When people see the Spicy Podcast, they'll understand that comment.
Yeah, when we're done here, though, I'm taking them out in the parking lot. Have a good one, bud.
You too.